Welcome to the Multifamily Marketers Podcast. I'm Josh Grillo, your host, co-founder here at Resident 360. I'm also joined by my co-host, Miss Caroline Mills. How are you doing, Caroline?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Another exciting topic, something that I know you know a ton about, which is property transitions. So today's topic of the show, we're calling it the Multifamily Marketers Playbook for Seamless Property Transitions. Caroline, did you come up with that title?
Absolutely. No, not all the way, but it's exactly what you want it to be, right? Be seamless. I mean, I'm excited about this topic. Transitions are definitely one of the most challenging, but also one of the most defining moments that we get to experience as marketers. So always makes it very interesting.
All right. I'm excited to get into this one. All right. We are going to dig deep with the property transition queen, Miss Caroline. Okay. So let's start at the very beginning.
Yes.
You find out your company is taking over a property. How exciting. What is the first thing that goes through your mind from a marketing perspective?
Yes, absolutely. First thing, and my thought is always going to be is how prepared are we and how prepared is the property? You never know how these things are going to happen. Sometimes you have the full 30 days, you know when due diligence is happening, you know what's in the pipeline, and then there may be some times where it's like, okay, takeover's next week, we've got to jump on this and get ready. So a lot of different things can come at you, but you know what you don't realize is as most of this and how successful the transition continues to go is by the prep that happens ahead of time.
Well, that's such a great point. So you're kind of inheriting a digital footprint. So once you know a transition is coming, what does that preparation actually look like?
Yes, absolutely. So when you first find out as a marketer that you're going to be taking over a property, there's going to be a lot of prep that needs to happen. One, you need to know who is going to be your contact for what is going to be the previous company, right? So you've got to start a line of communication with them. And this is things that you've got to go full deep dive, right? We talk about this in our digital audits and our online presence all the time. Who owns the Google listing? Who owns the domain? Where is the website going? What kind of ILS contracts do they have right now? You've got to look into, how are you getting the photos? How do you have other digital assets? All of these things have to go out. And so we always had typically two communications. One would go out to the existing management team asking all these kinds of questions. And then one's going to go out to the regional manager because you've got to prep the team that's coming into the property, right? I mean, they're going to have a lot of things going on. So prepping them from a marketing standpoint, what's the current occupancy? Do we have a budget of marketing for this property? Do you need recommendations? Here's what we provide. Here's kind of where we're looking. We would always give a snapshot just to kind of let them know, like, hey, on Google, you're currently sitting at a 3.0. Biggest complaints are X, Y, and Z. Your website is currently, with Jonah. We recommend staying with them, or we recommend, switching platforms. We'll say, hey, they're currently advertising on these sources. So it's kind of both sides. You've got to prep the one that's leaving and you've got to prep the people taking it over. And you're kind of the middleman. So a lot of prep, a lot of organization. Once you have a good formula, it's really the same thing every single time. But there is a lot of prep that you need to get ready for ahead of time to make sure that transition day is as seamless as possible.
You made a comment that you like to call this phase kind of like the marketing war room. Is that what you call it?
Yeah. So this is kind of a fun one because it does feel like that sometimes, right? I'm sure anyone listening that's been in transition is like, oh yeah, I know exactly what this is like. And so definitely our job is, to make sure that there's not a moment where anything goes digitally dark or wrong. I mean, this is going to affect your lead loss and, where your leads are flowing through. And the property is already going through enough. You may be keeping the same people, you may not. Operations is going through a whole switch. The bank is switching. So our job is just making sure nothing digitally goes down. So we are keeping the leads coming in. So there's a lot that goes into this. You kind of feel like that. You're in your digital war room, right? You've got all these different flashing buttons. You've got all these things you have to control with all these people. And so definitely the digital asset ownership, like I said, these are things, your website, your domain, your business listing, your social media pages, listing services, having the right call tracking numbers, making sure you're prepping all of your internal vendors for what's going to happen on what dates. So you are really the one kind of acting as the main hub there, making sure everyone's moving the way they need to prep you for this.
How do you organize all this? I mean, are you just like running off Google Sheets or like to me, it sounds like preparation is key, massive. And then the second part of that is organization, right? Where are you storing
Oh,
all this
absolutely.
information? Like, how is this, like, what do you do for that? What do you recommend?
Absolutely. It's up to you and your team on what services you used. We used a mix of different times at Google Sheets, at Monday.com, any kind of task tracking platform. Absolutely. I would definitely not say, like, oh, I know how to do these. I've done so many. I'll just send my emails and go. You would be surprised how much happens at one time, or you're in the middle of one and another one comes on board, and then a third one comes on board. So, absolutely, some kind of organization is key that kind of walks you through the process from start to finish of what you as a marketer need to be checking off from. I have sent the prep for takeover emails to, okay, takeover is happening and it's live, to, okay, we're 30 days post takeover. So absolutely, organization is key.
So when you're preparing, how early do you decide whether this is a rebrand versus an optimization?
Yeah, good question, because that can happen. It depends on where you're taking the asset over, if the owner themselves is selling the asset or if they're just firing the old management company and putting a new one in. So sometimes if they are completely selling it, if somebody else takes it over, they say, oh, well, it has to go under my name brand of The Wave. All of my apartments are called The Wave on Main Street, The Wave at Times Square, like whatever it is. So sometimes they have to change names completely. Sometimes they may be keeping the same name, but you may just be coming in as the management company to do a refresh. So you're going to be, renovating the clubhouse, the amenity areas. You're going to be renovating some units. The name is not changing, but that property just really needs to liven up and have a refresh to it. And then you've got properties who are just struggling and maybe nothing needs to change like aesthetic wise, but they just don't have good reviews. They don't have the best digital assets. And so there's kind of different phases of what you have to look at and what the property needs. I would say every single one, to an extent, needs a little bit of a refresh, right? Like you want to make sure you're putting your brand, your company on it, making sure it's in line with like exactly what your expectations are for all of your other properties, and making sure that everything's really nice and clean. There's a lot that goes into a name change, absolutely, like along with all those platforms. So just adds another layer of being in that war room and another aspect you have to take into consideration.
What would be the biggest risk during a transition from a marketing standpoint?
Oh, I would say losing your lead flow for sure. Because the moment that those leasing agents are sitting in that chair and that phone's not ringing and, that management company, they chose to take you because you said you could help them lease up. So now you're taking them over at 75% and it's been a week and they've had one tour. They're going to be like, well, what's going on? Like, what happened? So I would always say, like, what is generating traffic on day one, making sure that we want to launch, our search campaigns are ready, our listings are accurate, the website is live, tour scheduling is functioning, phones are routing correctly. So this is definitely not the time you want to experiment with new things. This is where we want to make sure we stabilize what we've got and that it's all working the right way.
How many times does it happen where it's all last minute?
Oh, it's happened for sure. Or it's happened where you think you have everything perfect, right? You go to turn it all on. Oh, something happened with the phone and the internet contract. It's in the old person's name who they can't get a hold of. Now the phones are down. Now residents are calling. Work orders aren't tracked. Like, it happens all the time where these kind of little things can happen even if you're prepared for it, or it's very last minute. So then you're rushing your CRM provider to set up what they need to set up so they can get in there and they can get you the access. And you're rushing, the night before, making sure the website is ready if you're building it in-house. So can absolutely happen. That's where staying organized is absolutely key.
So you're preparing all this stuff ahead of time in your marketing war room. Now, let's talk about the big day, right? The takeover day. Now, what actually matters on takeover day?
Absolutely, the execution, right? And you have to be prepared as a marketer whenever it's takeover day. You've got it in your calendar, right? This can happen at any moment. Now, sometimes you get familiar with certain players in the game of like when they like close out to occur. Sometimes both teams will get there at 8 a.m. to the property and the bank transaction will happen right then. And by 8:30, you're like managing the property. Sometimes they get there and you're at your computer all day, just doing your other work. You're in meetings and then it doesn't happen till the check doesn't clear till 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, or they're in a different time zone and it's a few hours later. So you always have to be very careful as far as when you're transitioning certain systems, especially a website, like when an old one is going down and a new one is going up. So absolutely, execution is going to be your key point here. So There may always be some little thing that goes wrong or something that once the website is live, you want to tweak it. But your absolutely non-negotiables are going to be, making sure that phone is ringing, making sure the forms are routing properly, making sure that your pricing is synced, that your availability is accurate, and any kind of office hours or any way that people need to get in contact with the office and how they're going to do so absolutely need to be the first things you're checking.
And I guess the big thing is stay calm and don't panic.
Absolutely. And that can be very easy to do because, oh my gosh, I'll have to tell you a story here. So we have a teammate on our team, Karina and I. She had started with me before, and within her first few weeks, we were like, okay, we have a transition coming up, like all hands on deck. And she's all excited. We're like, okay, I'm going to take it on. And we were like, by the way, there's 19 of them on the same day. So we were taking over an entire portfolio. It was 19 properties all at the same time. You want to talk about like organization and like all that planning ahead of time. It was hours and hours and weeks of her and I on the phone and like going through, and we're checking after each other. We're prepping 19 websites. We're prepping 19 contracts for all these ILS vendors. And then the day of launching 19 websites, going back and checking them, calling the properties 19 times. It can really be a lot and very easy to get overwhelming for sure.
Well, but it sounds like you guys, I mean, I know Karina is, obviously she's super prepared individual, just like yourself. So preparedness sounds like it's everything when it comes to takeovers, and panic is for no one.
Exactly. Having a good team and having that trust, where we could rely on each other to, okay, I'm going to take care of the ILS listings. You take care of this. And like knowing we could handle it and knock it out together, I would say absolutely helps any of these things. You're all on the same team, and all that organization and working together absolutely makes it easier.
Oh, that's great. All right. So let's talk about the first 30 days. So the dust is settling, right? Takeover day is over. The dust is settling. What should marketing teams focus on in the first 30 days?
Absolutely. So right now, your goal is definitely going to be a stabilization. You've made a lot of changes, and the team is going through a lot of changes. Like I said, you may not have the same team. You may be bringing in a whole new team. You've got to think of everything they're going through too. They just got 50 new logins to all their different systems. They've got new systems they're learning. They're learning how to scan checks on this new system. They're learning how their work orders work. They got a new maintenance guy. Like there's a lot going on. So in the marketing side of this, you want to make sure everything is stable, everything's working. If you launched some new, search campaigns or things like that, you're going to be going through your learning phase. You've got a lot that's happening right then. Websites, maybe your Matterports weren't uploaded because you couldn't get access to them because you didn't own them yet. Like there could just be a lot of different things that were happening in those first few weeks. Something we always used to like to do was check in with the team about 30 days after takeover from the marketing side and actually really just go through the website with them. A lot of times during these transitions, there's not like a website fill out form. There's not a website intake form. What we're doing is we're just scrubbing what was on the current site and we're putting it up on ours. And I don't know if you'd be surprised or not be surprised at how often you then get on with these teams and they're like, oh, yeah, we don't have a basketball court. We haven't had one for 3 years. We resurfaced that and it's a tennis court now. And you're like, okay, like that would have been good to know. But like you don't know these things till you talk to them. So we always say, give them a few weeks to get settled, let them get their bearings right, let them catch their breath, get on the phone with them, make sure it's undivided for marketing efforts at that time. Now we can talk to them about social media management. Now we can talk to them about reputation management. Now we can go through the website. Now we can ask how leads are going. And that's kind of really then when we can work on, okay, let's now stabilize and make sure everything's working and, hear back from the team at this point.
I love that. So let's talk about a little bit about, where do marketers sometimes miss the opportunity during transitions?
I would definitely say, kind of like we spoke about just a touch earlier, is that reputation reset. This is really the time that you've got to introduce, whether that's a new standard, completely repositioning. It doesn't have to be a name change, but just coming to that understanding. I think we've all seen in the industry before where maybe a property doesn't have great reviews and you go and check on their reviews. And now there's new responses under them that say, hey, Josh, I hate that this is, what you experienced. We want to let you know we're under new management. We'd be happy to discuss this with you and make these changes going forward. Now, when you're a prospect looking at those changes, you say, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. Now I see somebody's new is in there. Now you have that brand positioning to, okay, let's get a lot of positive reviews. Let's show that like this transition was good and it's working and people like us. And so this is a really good reset time to kind of look through those things and maybe address some stuff that just couldn't be taken care of before.
Are you a fan of when there is a transition or you're taking over a property, actually having signage and stuff that says, new management?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
It's kind of like when you see restaurants like under new management, right? Like, the old one was really bad. I mean, that's
yes, that's a good way you say that. Yeah, I would say for certain assets, right? Like we had, I would say, what if you had like a C-level asset that just wasn't getting the love and attention it needed? That's probably the time to say that. Your A-level asset, or maybe one that's like not a lot of problems, right? Like you don't want to cause extra attention to it if it's going well.
No.
Because there can also be some disturbances. Like residents don't like change. Maybe their current like community manager left that they loved. Like sometimes the residents will push back too. So I would say like I can be a fan of it when it's used in the right place. Absolutely.
Got it. So be selective about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So let's do a big takeaway. We're like 15 minutes in on the call. So let's do a big takeaway. So everything you've said, and obviously a lot about property transitions. If listeners were to take away one thing today, Caroline, what should it be?
Absolutely. I would say a great transition for marketing should feel invisible to the prospects. They should never sense an operational change behind the scenes. But internally, it's going to require very strategic work. We want to make sure that these listings are not going down. We want to make sure it's not hard for them to get a hold of the property and they're going through 17 phone trees to get to us, or they get routed to a completely different property. Also seen that happen before. So we definitely want this to make the prospects just very seamless. We want to make it invisible, which, requires a lot of people don't see what we're doing, but definitely requires some strategy and organization in the back end.
Love that. Invisible. That's a great one. Great transition marketing should feel invisible to your prospects and renters. That's incredible. Love it. All right. As always, very good insight. We will wrap up the show right there with Invisible. And we will see you guys next week on the Multifamily Marketers Podcast. We'll have another exciting topic to talk about. Caroline, once again, thank you so much. Have fun out there in North Carolina. And to everybody listening as well, please like, subscribe, share it with your on-site teams and friends and family members and anybody else. Help support the show. Help us grow the show as well. We appreciate it. We are now on episode, is this 27 or 20? I think we're on episode 27 now, Caroline. Can you believe it?
Believe so. That feels so crazy.
You know what? It's pretty awesome that we've been able to stick with it, right? Every single week, right? Coming up with topics and knocking them out. So we appreciate everybody that's been listening along with us as well. The feedback has been fantastic. All right. That's it for the show. And we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Josh. Bye.